Hi, everyone. It's a ticket to Christ. Thank you for tuning back in. We're focused on really putting our faith and trust directly in the Lord Jesus Christ as opposed to people, mankind, your friends, your husband, your wife, your manager, your boss, your government official, your minister, any type of so-called human being who's in a role of oversight, not putting your faith and trust in them. And it doesn't mean you don't show them respect. It doesn't mean you don't value their input. But they're not God. They're not Jesus. They're not intended to be in the position of Jesus Christ. That's not their ordained role. Their role is to operate within the office that God has assigned for them, but not in his office, right? And I think people miss that nuance. And so we're looking at the difference between Saul and David in the Old Testament. There's a lot to learn here, and I encourage you to study both out. Study out the King Saul, who was a people pleaser, full of pride, and seemed to fear man more than God. And then look at David. And as you read both lives, you will see a pattern of what not to do. So for Saul, it's too long, so I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm in 1 Samuel 28. And this is just before Saul died. God had wrenched the kingdom from him, right? So we can pick up from verse 17. He went to a witch who was following a familiar spirit, and through that he was able to get Samuel to be called up from the grave. And that is a very interesting encounter even, right? So from verse 17, Samuel is telling him, "And the Lord hath done to him as he spake by me, for the Lord hath rent the kingdom out of thine hand, and given it to thy neighbor, even to David. Because thou obeyest not the voice of the Lord, nor executest his fierce wrath upon Amalek. Therefore hath the Lord done this thing unto thee this day. Moreover, the Lord will also deliver Israel with thee into the hand of the Philistines. And tomorrow shalt thou and thy sons be with me. The Lord also shall deliver the host of Israel into the hand of the Philistines." Then Saul fell straightway all along on the earth and was sore afraid because of the words of Samuel. And there was no strength in him, for he had eaten no bread all the day, nor all the night. And the woman came unto Saul, and saw that he was sore troubled, and said unto him, "Behold, thine handmaid hath obeyed thy voice, and I have put my life in my hand, and have hearkened unto thy word, which thou spakest unto me. Now therefore I pray thee, hearken thou also unto the voice of thine handmaid, and let me set a morsel of bread before thee, and eat, that thou mayest have strength when thou goest on thy way." But he refused and said, "I will not eat." But his servants together with the woman compelled him, and he hearkened unto their voice. So he arose from the earth and sat upon the bed, and the woman had a fat calf in the house, and she hasted and killed it, and took flour and kneaded it, and did bake unleavened bread thereof, and she brought it before Saul and before his servants, and they did eat. Then they rose up and went away that night. Okay, this whole account is a bit disturbing to me. Initially, upon reading it in the past, I just never thought twice about it. But in reading it, it just seemed to me that Saul always made he always listened to the wrong voice. And it's always the voice of the people. There's always this people pleasing. So if you urged him enough, he's going to buckle, right? Just really always concerned about what people thought. And even when you read, if you read from verse 15 in this same chapter, and you're getting an understanding of how he's feeling, that he's very distressed. He's distraught. He's deeply distressed. But when he voices what his distress is about to Samuel, he says, "For the Philistines make war against me, and God is departed from me, and answereth me no more, neither by prophets nor by dreams. Therefore I have called thee, that thou mayest make known unto me what I shall do." Just incredible self-focus. Incredible self-focus. And a lot of times when people are trusting in man, you see this type of viewpoint, this type of attitude and approach. Spiritually, it's about what they're feeling. Everything is about them. You know, he's supposed to be king of Israel, and he wasn't concerned about that these armies were coming against God, against the God of Israel, that these armies were coming against God's people. That was not his focus. It was all about him, his position, and what was happening to him. And so he didn't have a shepherd's heart for the people that he was responsible for. And he did not have a respect and a reverence and a fear of God above man. Right? So he was never fully obedient to the voice of God. Verse 18, Samuel is telling you, "Because thou obeyest not the voice of the Lord." And there is the crux of the matter. He didn't obey God. But when man spoke to him, when people came pressing, even to the point of this witch, he obeys. So initially, what I'm getting here, the witch is saying, "Come, eat so you can have strength." And at first he refuses. Why? Because he hasn't eaten all day, because he's fasting. So why are you going to break your fast at the voice of this witch? Not only does he break the fast, but they have a meal around it. It takes quite some time to kill a calf and to make all that food. Verse 24. That's not a quick thing. There was no McDonald's back then, right? So it took hours for them to cook this food properly and to make it. And when you break bread with someone, it's a fellowship, right? You think of it kind of like his Last Supper. And he had that Last Supper with a witch, right? And hearkened to the voice of his servants and this witch who compelled him. And, you know, this last sentence in verse 25, "and they did eat," just strikes me like a spiritual, he ate of his fate of disaster and destruction in a way, you know? And so that's where the road of people pleasing leads you. It always leads people to false doctrine, to people who are into witchcraft, New Age, and the occult, running after this prophecy and that prophecy, and not going directly to the Lord. Now compare him to David. We see David in 1 Samuel chapter 30, right? And this is when Ziklag, where David and his men, we can read quickly from verse 1. I don't want this to be too long. "So it came to pass when David and his men came to Ziklag on the third day, that the Amalekites had invaded the south and Ziklag, and smitten Ziklag and burned it with fire, and had taken the women captives that were therein. They slew not any, either great or small, but carried them away and went on their way. So David and his men came to the city, and behold, it was burned with fire, and their wives and their sons and their daughters were taken captive. Then David and the people that were with him lifted up their voice and wept until they had no more power to weep. And David's two wives were taken captives, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail, the wife of Nabal the Carmelite. And David was greatly distressed, for the people spake of stoning him, because the soul of all the people was grieved, every man for his sons and for his daughter. But David encouraged himself in the Lord his God. And that is the difference between Saul and David. Now, again, as I pointed out yesterday, when you put your faith and trust in man, you're in a cursed place, because they can turn on you. And here we see, right? Verse 6, these people who were with David, you're so great, you're so wonderful. They now speak of stoning him, because they're blaming him for what happened in their life. They're blaming him for the disaster that came, and they were in disaster. But notice that David did not people please. He didn't follow what Saul's approach would have been. It says he encouraged himself in the Lord his God. That is why God said David was a man after his own heart. that David always turned to God. His faith and trust was in God. That is the difference in between someone who God is with and someone who God is not with. Because David was not a perfect man, right? He stumbled, but this was his heart. The trust he had in God. When he repented fully to God. God was in the role and position of God. And he was, even though people spoke of stoning him because of their own grief, he didn't get his confidence and comfort from people. He looked to God. And so that is the difference, in how we need to walk. And I think that we can get a lot of just insight from studying this out. So that is it from me, beloved. Thank you. Thank you for listening. I hope it blesses you in some small way. Have a great day.